Of course, a great honor to be here with all these distinguished speakers. There are a few things I'd like to share from my work at the SDG Students Program about this particular issue. The first one I think is about how the challenge is mostly shifting the way we're looking at education, not in something that needs to be focused on the curriculum for how are we integrating sustainable development, but in supporting education beyond the campus. I want to stress this to all the people who are listening to this and also to all our different panelists that the SDGs is not something that needs to be taught and taught only. It is something that needs to be enabled, and it's a way of doing. What I've seen from the entire network of students, leaders, and also enthusiastic students who are hoping to make a change in the world is that if we want them to become critically needed change makers in all contexts, big and small, they have to stop becoming simply passive consumers of content, but creating interesting projects out in the world and their local communities to actually nail that in terms of how they are supposed to be that change maker in their local communities. I'd like to give a few different examples for how Action has been supplementing tertiary education in a few different universities that we're operating in, just to showcase how that part is one of the most important parts, in my opinion, for what sustainable development needs to look like in education. For example, when one of our university hubs in Uganda, for example, very unfortunately during COVID, the COVID pandemic had one of their major administrative buildings burnt down. What they told me was, in response to this, we're learning a lot about fire drills and different sort of safety systems. I'm going to go together with my hub and start designing things that are going to be donated to the university campus to help them recover from the fire. This is what we mean when we say sustainable development isn't something to be taught. It's something that needs to be enabled. It's something to be done. Another thing I like to see, I've seen in the past month is that some of our fellows and also our coordinators in New Delhi have decided that after COVID, they will come together with a plan to collect the voices of children and women in slums to come up with policy suggestions for how they can better recover from the pandemic. Again, this is something that they've decided to do going beyond their campus. But this all happened because the university has become a ground for them to achieve such collaboration and also to turn that knowledge into action. It's a great way for them to meet other people who are also interested in very similar things. But that knowledge in itself for how do we create safe systems or how do we collect information and do policy making, that needs to go beyond learning into translating into community. So that's the first thing I want to say in terms of the challenges in our current education system, not just on curriculum, it has to be action-based. Second thing, also echoing on what's been said before on a digital divide, I'm sure that a lot of participants I see here on the Zoom call might be paying for us to enter this call. And the reason for this is because a lot of the data that's necessary for them to access information and online webinars or education needs to be paid in a very high amount of cost in their local communities. And given the digital divide and the inconsistency of university education under COVID-19, sustainable development needs to be something that has to be structurally supported to make sure that no one gets left behind during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we'll see this, for example, in the case of some countries and universities offering data subsidies and reimbursements for students to and go into online education. But how are we translating that into more general accessibility programs so that all countries and also all students who are being left behind due to the lack of infrastructure can be made sure to be part of that recovery and also keep on their learning during COVID-19. Last but not least, I think I'd like to touch upon the idea of what university is for. I come from London School of Economics, and from the home city that I'm from in Hong Kong, career is one of the top things that students are thinking about. How exactly is sustainable development being incorporated into this core stress that they have in terms of, for example, what am I going to do after university? I want to go into this hub and learn about sustainable development, but I've also got schoolwork, and I think schoolwork is going to be more important for me if I want to get a job. How are we incorporating what we think is important for society into what society is telling them to be important? There are a few things I'd like to say. For example, I remember when we were recruiting a coordinator. So these are university students that are heading student organizations at different universities to teach them about sustainable development. One of them told me that I am here for one reason and one reason only. That is, I see my peers dropping out of school because of unemployment at home. They don't have the money, therefore they're dropping out of school. And I want to make sure that what we're doing here at school. It's not just making sure that they're being fed content to go into the next stage of their life, but that it's being useful so that they can, for example, earn extra part-time jobs, income, so that they can stay in school. So when we're talking about sustainable development, we need to find a way to make sure it's not something that's seen as an extracurricular to be competing with the school curriculum, but incorporate it into what's necessary in a school curriculum. In our program, we see that one thing we've done very well is creating some sort of certification or proof to celebrate their learnings and action in sustainable development. We've partnered with the Ban Ki-moon Global Citizenship Center, and also with SDSN and also SG Academy, which Chandrika is working in, so that all students are going through action components and also learning about sustainable development gets a certificate to prove that they've done this. Sadly, in this world, we don't have enough incentive systems for that yet. So looking forward, I'd be willing and happy to hear what our different panelists are thinking about this specific issue.